I want to talk about consciousness and free will and why these two concepts or ideas are so important. Well, consciousness is not a concept, but so I was listening to Tom Campbell. He's a physicist, and he was saying that in the double slit experiment, he had put detectors after the slits, but also he had put recorders. So when the recorders were on, the particles or the light that was going through the double slit was acting as particles. But when he turned the recorder off, or when he didn't know how the particle was acting, or was it the particle or was it the wave, even though the detectors were detecting, but still the wave pattern emerged again on the screen. So this, he said, which is a conclusive experiment, shows that just the fact that your consciousness knows something, okay, that makes a huge difference without any other information. So the concept of free will or volition is so important, and it comes in, or it sneaks in many forms, and it's tied to this same idea. And that means that say for example you go to a new country and you've never been there, and usually most people can tell as soon as they come to the airport what kind of government this place has, because the ambiance, the energies in the, even from the very beginning in the airport, it kind of implies in many ways if everything is controlled in that society versus a place where there are multiple decision makers, and it's really a free or democratic society. When a group of people, they know that they are the one that make political decisions, there is no one else, and if they make a decision, that's gonna stick. It's not gonna be upturned. There is no hidden levers. There is no third party that will rejig that decision. That's a huge difference. It's the same way when the waves emerge, when you have turned turn the recorders off, the particles they emerge as waves. They rearrange themselves because in the consciousness of the experimenter, he knows that he doesn't know. Okay, it's very important. So the same concept, I think, is like a hidden variable. Say for example you have 2 or 3 physical phenomena, like you have a heat flow, or you have fluid flow, okay, and there are different physical variables in each one of them, but when you write them down, the equations, you'll see that the equations look very similar to each other. It's because the mechanism, the underlying mathematics of physics of it's very similar. The same goes between this experiment or idea between the concept of free markets and versus rigged markets. Okay, so for example, I was watching a trader. His name is Gregory Manarino, and he was saying that he's so against rigging the markets. Okay, because when he's trading, his his mind is taking into account all this rigging that's being done, versus if for example there was no rigging and he knew it that this is a free market, then his mind would go into a different mode, just like the particles would now behave like waves. Okay, because then he would just be forced to consider the fundamentals of different companies and their free interaction, and then this is a completely different regime and way of trading in a free market versus trading in a market that's totally rigged, okay, or partially rigged. So I want to go after this concept. It's very convoluted, but I know that when my videos become very complicated, my viewership drops to like a few people. But hey, my ideas and my research are not for whole society. Only you have to have a certain finesse, and mathematical and also intellectual sophistication to kind of understand what we are after here. The concept of free will comes into play in the criminal justice system. That means that the Romans had the concept of guilty mind and being really guilty after you have committed the act. But the guilty mind, when the consciousness has already decided to commit the crime, it looks at everything in that sense. Okay, so what the concept of free will also comes into play when you look at every business transaction or relationship and you follow it at steps to see the point where someone's free will was overridden. Like for example, a woman have free will to say no. If it's overridden, this becomes the crime. Or economic sovereignty of say a company is overridden. Their free will or their collective free will is bypassed when somebody, for example, breaks into their computer system or breaks into their vaults and transport whatever values that's there. Okay, when the things are whole and the way the company wanted it, that was the healthy and correct state of affairs. When somebody violates that or violates this free will, or the free will is circumvented, then all kinds of forms of crime are defined now, and they go from there. The same concept goes with the difference between democratic system or a dictatorship. It's like what I said, the free will, when a private party knows for a fact that there is nobody else, it's just us that makes these decisions, these political decisions, and anybody else did something or planned to do something. If we catch up with him, there is going to be big back. They're going to either end up in prison or something is going to really go wrong. So the reason a lot of things don't work out when it comes to relationships and in society is this blockage, because at the end of the long process sits consciousness, and this consciousness must have that final say. That you must be able to make that choice. Okay, and if it's circumvented or if it's overridden, then a lot of things go wrong. Well, another way of looking at this is a lot of people are afraid of AI, or they're afraid of people who are very smart, or they're afraid of witches, or they're afraid of government, or they're afraid of very influential people. For example, you hear many Americans or Russians are afraid of George Soros because he has so much money and he's able to influence elections or choices, not based on what the population may want, but based on his decisions and his cash and his influence. The same argument goes with the Zionists or Wahhabi lobby. Is once this consciousness is circumvented, once a people or a company or a group, once they realize that, hey, we are not the ultimate decision maker, then this becomes a different form of crime, and it becomes just like a rigged market. And for example, when the U.S. goes around and overthrows foreign governments, creates a tremendous inner hostility in populations, because at this point they know that their government is rigged. As well as we see in Europe that many countries, they want to get out of Europe, because they know that it's not democratic. Somebody was chosen by a bureaucracy or by a bank, and then they are in charge. Well, the physicist Tom Campbell, he goes even one step further, and he says that the universe is a simulation. It's really the consciousness or the choices that's imparted and by a greater mind. So this is really the entire thing is a video game or something like that. Anyhow, I'm very interested in this topic, and I still wonder about these ideas. It's like I've gone through a long process of coming to understand that, hey, the consciousness is the most important thing, or when you look at different systems, that this volition or free will plays a big role. This is deciding factor. Well, thank you very much for being in my YouTube channel, and please subscribe. Thank you.